This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good morning, guys. Today we have a topic named post-cesarean pregnancy. Am I audible, guys? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Coming to the topic.
Congratulations, madam. We are very proud of you, ma'am.
Thank you. Coming to today's session, pregnancy, when we call it a post-cesarean pregnancy, when a pregnancy with a pre-cesarean delivery, if a first pregnancy is when a pregnant woman has underwent cesarean section for the first pregnancy, then the consequences or then the late pregnancies are called post cesarean pregnancy. That is, if the patient has underwent cesarean in the first time, for the second time if she has become pregnant, or for the third time she has become pregnant, then we will call her as post cesarean pregnant woman. Pregnancy with the pre-cesarean delivery is a quite prevalent in the present day obstetric practice. Why it has become quite prevalent? Because nowadays, other than the obstetric indications and other than the relative indications for LSCS, one more indication has come up, which is called CDMR, cesarean delivery on maternal request, where the pregnant woman herself asks that she wants cesarean and she doesn't want to undergo a normal delivery. Then that indication is called CDMR, which is already your attendance will be recorded simultaneously. Please come fast, so that in that indication is called CDMR. This is due to liberalization of the primary cesarean section with non-recurrent indications. These cases are called post-cesarean pregnancy. If the patient has prior underwent and cesarean, then the subsequent pregnancies are called post-cesarean pregnancy. What are the effects of pregnancy on pregnancy and labor? The following complications are likely to increase in a post-cesarean pregnancy. They are abortion, preterm labor, normal pregnancy alignments, operative interferences and incidental morbidities, more chances of placenta previa, adherent placenta. What are the three types of placenta previa we can see? Adherent placentas types are accreta, percreta, and increta. Accreta is adherent to the myometrium. Percreta is penetration into myometrium. Increta is invasion till the serosa. Postpartum hemorrhages are most common. Peripartum hysterectomies are also most common. Anna, Anna, excuse me. మూవ్ అవ్వలేదు person. నేనే మళ్ళీ పెడదామని చూసాను తెలుసు. Okay. Guys, sorry for the interruption. Now we have seen the effects on pregnancy. Moving on to the effects on the scar in the subsequent pregnancies. There will be increased risk of scar rupture, whereas the lower segment scar usually ruptures during labor. That of a classical or hysterotomy scar ruptures during the later pregnancies and labor in the late pregnancy, that is in the third trimester or during the labor. What are the types of scars which we give on the uterus? One is the lower segment transverse scar or the classical single vertical scar. Means it's supposing this and an uterus. Usually we give in the lower segment transverse scar. Thinking, assume that my pen is a scar. This is called the lower segment uterine scar. Am I visible, guys? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thinking this phone as an uterus and the pen is a scar, which we usually give on the uterus. If this is a scar, then it is called lower segment uterine scar. That is given in the lower segment transverse scar. Usually we give in normal conducting cesarean sections. This is a classical section, classical scar where it is a vertical scar given on the uterus, which includes the upper segment and the lower segment. These are the types of scars given on the uterus. The incidence of the scar rupture is about 0.2 to 1.5% in the lower segment scar, about to 4 to 9% in the classical scar. It means that classical scar on the uterus will have more chances of rupture in the subsequent pregnancies. Healing of the uterine wound. The uterine wound is healed by the muscles, connective tissues, if the opposition of the margins are perfect. The factors which involve in the impaired healing of the uterine wound are imperfect opposition of the cut margins. Thinking that this is an uterine scar. When we have to suture the uterine scar after delivery of the placenta, we have to give a correct opposition of the uterine margins. This opposition should not be one over the other. That is, when you are taking with a vicryl bite, the bite should go through the lower segment, upper segment, and it should come out, and next bite has to be taken, and the opposition should be the same way. It should not go either like this or either like this. If that is a scenario, then there will be impaired wound healing. Why we are so much worried about impaired wound healing? Because in subsequent pregnancies, if there is an impaired healing of the uterine wound, there will be more chances of rupture uterus, which we are worried about the patient more in the subsequent pregnancies. So whenever you are closing your uterine scar, there should be a perfect opposition of the cut margins, should not leave any blood clots in between the sutures because that will impair wound healing. Should not leave any hematoma in between the sutures or opposition. Should not stretch the lower segment more because there will be, in that scenario, there will be decreased vascularity. The other condition is poor general condition of the patient. If the patient is anemic, if the patient is diabetic, if the patient is has some other malnutrition, or if she is a case of tuberculosis and all, where there will be impaired wound healing. Sound scar, which is more a lower segment scar or a classical scar. The lower segment scar usually we prefer because there will be perfect opposition of the margins while suturing it. So it will have proper wound healing, and the subsequent pregnancies, she will not have any risk of any ruptures. But when coming to the classical scar, that will see lower segment fibers will get opposed easily and come to normal. But when you are cutting in the vertical, there will be upper segment. What is the differentiation between the upper segment and the lower segment? Upper segment will be thick enough and lower segment will be thin. So even though if you have closed a classical scar in a perfect apposition like this, but what happens post delivery? There will be contraction and retraction of the uterus, where the size of the uterus will come down. So suppose thinking this is a normal uterine size which you have given a classical section scar and sutured it with perfect approximation. But see, this is a perfect approximation you have done for a following a classical incision. But what happens to the uterus post delivery? It contracts, retracts, contracts, retracts. Contraction and retraction will be more in the upper segment and will be absent in the lower segment. So if it is more in the upper segment, what happens when you have tied a knot and when you are pulling it and letting it come closer, what happens to the sutures here? It will come loosen. So there will be improper approximation of the muscle fibers, following which in the subsequent pregnancies more chances of scar rupture. But you can ask me what happens in the lower segment. Lower segment also, if we do a closure, there will be contraction and retraction of the uterus, but lower segment remains calm or quiescent in the postpartum period, that is the puerperal period. Lower segment doesn't have any contraction retraction capacity, only the upper segment will have. So here sutures will be loosened, whereas here sutures cannot be loosened because only the upper segment contracts, retracts, and come following the size decreases like this. But whereas the sutures here will not get affected. So the lower segment scar is more sound than the classical scar. Differentiation between the lower segment scar and classical or hysterotomy scar. Appositions are more perfect, comes perfect apposition in the lower segment, whereas the classical is difficult to oppose, first thing, due to what? Thick upper segment. The part of the uterus remains inert while healing process, that is quiescent. It doesn't contract, retract. Lower uterine segment doesn't have a capacity of contraction and retraction, whereas the upper segment will have contraction and retraction. So the sutures become loose, leading to the imperfect healing. Whereas the stretching effect, the scar is made to stretch during the future pregnancies and normal labor more along the line of the scar. The stretch is right angle to the scar. What do you mean by the stretching effect is, suppose this is a classical scar and uterus is like this. How the uterus expands initially? Like this. When a pressure is giving and it is getting expanded, pressure is in this way and your scar is in the right angle. More chances of rupture. But if it is a lower uterine segment scar, initially the upper uterine segment gets expanded. Later the lower uterine segment forms. When does the lower uterine segment form? During the late pregnancy, that is after 35 weeks of or 34 weeks it starts forming, and after 37 weeks it gets fully formed. That is the reason we wait till 38 weeks for any pregnancy, so that the lower uterine segments will be well formed and we will not have any problem during the surgery process. So this stretching effect will be later pregnancies in the lower uterine segment. But whereas in the classical hysterectomy or hysterotomy scar, it will be right angle. So more chances of rupture. Chance of weakening of the scar will be there if the placenta gets implantation. That is normal for any scar. Wherever the placenta gets inserted near the scar, there will be a chance of placenta, adherent placenta, might be an accreta, increta or percreta. What is the placental migration theory? We have learned earlier that when the ovum is pushed into the uterus, it might get in any part of the uterus, it might get attached. If suppose wherever it get attached till 20 weeks, it has placental migration theory. That is, it has placental trophotropomerism. Do you get that? Do you remember that word? Where placenta will be placental cells, or placenta will have more affinity towards the upper uterine segment. So this will slowly migrate up to the fundus. This is called placental migration theory. The lower segment scar or the transverse scar, it usually heals better compared to the classical scar. During the course of labor, the integrity of the scar is need to be assessed. What do you mean by need to be assessed? For that reason, we go for a scar tenderness test during our routine antenatal examinations. What do you mean by scar tenderness test? Where the patient will be placed on the table. After our all the grips, we will ask the patient, or we will divert the patient, and we will talk to her. In the meantime, we will put our ulnar border of the right hand on the scar, or usually 1 inch above the scar, and we will press it from towards our side towards the left, and we will see whether the patient is wincing with pain or not. This is called scar tenderness test. If the patient is wincing with pain, we write scar tenderness present. If the patient is not wincing or not complaining of any pain, then there is no tenderness, where we mention no scar tenderness else. That is the integrity of the scar is assessed in that way. Factors that are to be considered while assessing the scar are evidences of scar dehiscence during the labor, that is the impending rupture. Scar dehiscence means asymptomatic suppression or thinning of the scar without involving the peritoneal cord and without any hemorrhage. Okay, now I have to tell you about two definitions of words. One is scar dehiscence. Thinking that these both are a scar. Scar dehiscence, scar rupture. Scar dehiscence is think uterus is composed of 3 layers. If 2 layers are open and the peritoneal layer is not open, and there is no bleeding through it, because wherever we have a cut on the body, it starts bleeding. If there is no bleeding on it, then that is scar dehiscence. It will be like this, where here some thin peritoneal coat will be covering. This is called scar dehiscence. If there is a complete rupture like this, and we can see it through a hole like this, then it is scar rupture, where there will be complete rupture of or complete separation of the 2 scars to all the 3 layers, and through this cut margin, bleeding will start. That is scar rupture. This is scar dehiscence. Previous operative notes has to be kept in mind while dealing with the post-cesarean pregnancy. What are the things we usually ask in the previous? What do we want in the previous pregnancy history? Is why, if cesarean is done, why it is done? That is the indication of the cesarean section. And whether it is an planned procedure, that is an elective procedure, or it is done on an emergency procedure, or following the surgery, if there are any blood transfusions, any history of fever, prolonged stay in the hospital. These are the things usually we ask in a previous pregnancy. If the cesarean is done, the indication of cesarean, it is an absolute indication or it is a relative indication, has to be ruled out. That is recurrent indication, non-recurrent indication. If it is a planned procedure or elective procedure, what do it affect in the subsequent pregnancies is, how do it affect is, if it is a planned procedure, see, I am a doctor, I'm a gynecologist. I know I have to do a section for an ex-patient in the next, I have planned it as an elective by the next day on around 10 o'clock. I know I have a section tomorrow morning. So previously only I will make OT ready, anesthetist ready, pediatrician ready, my technicians, my OT technicians and my OT sister, and I will be prepared for a section. So chances of doing some wrong, doing, what do you mean by, after posting the case, there will be no hurry and everyone will do their job and we will be finishing the section. Or if I have to do, if I have planned for tomorrow, but the patient has went into labor today and where normal delivery will not occur in the patient, then in those scenarios, I have to take off a section immediately. Then I will be in a rush for an anesthetist. Everyone whomever I need, I will be in a rush. So there will be chances of more doing wrong in a hurry procedure. So I have to think of an elective and emergency. I have to ask her if it is an emergency procedure section done in a previous pregnancy. I have to ask whether it is followed by a prolonged labor or not. That is, I have to ask her if it is done in an emergency. I have to ask her whether she has been admitted in the morning and she has been given a trial of labor for a whole day. And it is as it is not progressing, and we have to ask her whether she has been taken for section in the night or like this in the same history. We have to ask her to know whether it is a prolonged labor, so that in those cases there will be increased chances of sepsis and there will be imperfect wound healing. So I might expect I might have an weakened scar in this following pregnancy. If I am taking off a section, I might think there will be adhesion chances. So I have to be careful in those. Next, I have to ask her post section if is there any blood transfusion or not. If she gives history of blood transfusions post cesarean in the previous pregnancy, I have to think about her anemic status. She might be in anemia, so they might have transfused blood. That itself indicates that there will be chances of imperfect wound healing of the uterine scar. One more thing, if or she might have landed up in PPH, so there will be more chances of adhesions in the cavity. So that will be one of my issue during surgery. Prolonged stay. I have to also ask her why she has been for a long time in the hospital. If she has been for a long time, because that it itself indicates me that whether she has any sepsis following the surgery which involves the improper wound healing. Next thing is whether everything was normal or she had any history of fever and all, to know the sepsis chances and imperfect wound healing. Technical difficulty in the primary operation leading to the lateral extensions or tears to involve the branches of uterine vessels or colporexis. That is which is most commonly seen in an emergency procedure. Pregnancy present and the past. Pregnancy occurring soon after the operation before the wound has got the time for sound healing. What do you mean by sound healing? That is a complete healing. How much time after first pregnancy the uterine apposition comes to normal? I mean, perfect wound healing occurs in the lower uterine segment. It is for usually they say, according to Williams, it is 18 months. It takes 18 months after the first section or first scar, the scar given on the uterus to heal. It takes 18 months. So usually they say interpregnancy interval should be at least 2 years for an previous LSCS. That itself indicates that the 2 years will be sufficient for the proper wound healing of the uterine scar, so that there will be no chances of dehiscence or rupture in the subsequent pregnancies. Second thing is her iron stores and calcium stores will get replenished. So she will be normal for the second pregnancy in spite of her landing with the anemic status. So all these 2 years are inter-pregnancy interval should be must. Pregnancy complications such as twins or polyhydramnios put stretching effect on the scar. If previously she has underwent section and this time if she has turned out to be twins, or she has turned out to be polyhydramnios of idiopathic etiology, or polyhydramnios of due to GDM, that is gestation diabetes, where polyhydramnios are we see normally. If this is there, what happens to the scar which is given? It stretches more. So the chances of rupture will be more. So that has to be kept in mind. History of previous vaginal delivery following an operation may weaken the scar. What do you mean by this? This is called VBAC, that is vaginal birth after cesarean delivery. Suppose she is G3 now. G1, she has underwent term elective section. After 4 years, she has conceived again. That is G2. And she has delivered by normal delivery. That is called, first one is called cesarean section. Second pregnancy is called post cesarean section. But she has delivered VBAC. She has delivered vaginally, so it is called VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean section. Some after 2 years, she has conceived for the third time. Then she has a scar. She has normally delivered. But this time, when she's going through the pregnancy of 9 months and through the delivery time, this scar might have weakened during this second pregnancy where you have done a vaginal delivery. So third time she might have the first scar rupture. There will be more chances of the rupture or dehiscence in the first scar given on the uterus. So that history to be kept in mind. Placenta previa in the present pregnancy may weaken the scar. She has a scar. That second time she has underwent vaginal delivery where the scar has become weak. Now again she has become pregnant. That placenta might adhere to the lower uterine segment, or she might have normally placenta located on the fundus. If the placenta is on the lower uterine segment scar, then it might weaken. First thing is we are worried about placenta previa or placenta increta, percuta, and adherent placentas, whatever it is, because we are in a worry of excessive bleeding. Placental separation will not occur following the delivery. She might land up in a hysterectomy, or she might land up in a subtotal hysterectomy, or she might have an excessive PPH. So that is our first thing. Second thing is what previa will adherent placenta causes to the scar. It will weaken the scar. So she might have an dehiscence, she might have rupture. These are the things we have to keep in mind when we are taking the history who is a post cesarean pregnant woman. Evaluation of uterine scar on the ultrasonography. Assessment of the thickness of the lower uterine scar is done. The risk of rupture is high, that is 9% when the full thickness is less than 2.3%. This is, see, when a scar ruptures, no one knows. I might do a ultrasound for a post cesarean pregnant woman around 37 weeks, and I'll document saying that the scar thickness is of 3.5 mm. It doesn't mean that scar will rupture, or it doesn't say that scar doesn't rupture. Usually the studies have seen that this 2.3 mm and the rupture is 9%. All these are according to studies. They have conducted a study and they have published saying that where they have taken all the post cesarean pregnancies and they have seen the full thickness uterine segment scar thickness. If it is of 2.5 mm, they say 2.5 mm is the cutoff point for the scar thickness. They say if it is less than 2.5 mm, there will be more chance of scar rupture. If it is more than 2.5 mm, there will be less chance of scar rupture. It doesn't mean that it will apply for all the patients. After getting a thickness of scar, lower uterine segment on ultrasound, you have to clinically correlate. It doesn't mean that on a scan report, if you see some 3.5 mm and say to the patient saying that your scar doesn't rupture, you can go till 39 weeks, it is wrong. Everything is correlation. You have to do a per abdomen examination. You have to elicit your scar tenderness through your ulnar border of the hand. You have to see the lower uterine segment scar thickness on the ultrasound. Then correlate with her present pregnancy conditions such as twins, polyhydramnios. You have to rule out everything where there will be no excessive uterus expansion. Then correlate everything, then make your statement saying that you can wait till 38 weeks or you have to undergo an immediate LSCS, or you have to get admitted and we will watch, and continuous monitoring has to be done till she completes her term. Then plan for an repeat section. So, but when you have done a scan where it is showing 2 mm, in that case there is no correlation, because documentation has shown that it is 2 mm where it is less than 2.5. Then wait till the patient becomes term, immediately after term post for an LSCS. Evidences of scar rupture. What are the normal scar and like these are the things when you have to keep in mind that the patient might have an impending scar rupture. What are those? When the patient is admitted in the U, if there is an abnormal CTG, that is CTG is ER non-stress test during labor. That is very abnormal FHR, that is fetal heart rate, or if it is an bradycardia, variabilities or decelerations are more, then you have to think that she might have an scar dehiscence or scar rupture. If she is complaining of suprapubic pain, excuse me, then also you have to think of scar rupture. If she's complaining of shoulder tip pain or a chest pain, or there is an acute onset of scar tenderness where there will be increase in pulse, then you have to have in mind of thinking of impending scar rupture. Or excessive vaginal bleeding when CTG is connected, then, or if she has been catheterized, if there is an hematuria, then there will be evidence of scar rupture. Or if there is a maternal tachycardia, hypertension or scar, then or shock, then it is an scar rupture. Loss of station of the presenting part also gives you an evidence of impending scar rupture or dehiscence. Early diagnosis of scar dehiscence or rupture needs prompt laparotomy or resuscitation to reduce mortality and morbidity in mother and the infant. Management of a pregnancy with pre-cesarean delivery. The patient should be considered as high risk, and such regular antenatal checkups is mandatory. At each visit, inquiry is to be made out about the pain and tenderness over the scar or any history of vaginal bleeding. Hospitalization, that is for the elective cases with a previous history of lower segment cesarean section operation should be admitted at 38 weeks, because to assess the case and to formulate the line of treatment. It also gives you to prevent the inconvenience to the patient if the labor pain starts earlier. Cases with a prior history of classical cesarean section to be admitted at 36 weeks, monitored. If any sign of impending scar rupture has to be taken for cesarean section immediately. All the cases of weak lower segment scar are also be to admitted with 36 weeks. How we'll come to know whether it is a weak lower segment scar or not? Because if she has underwent a previous normal delivery, that is VBAC after the first section, now third, then it is a weak lower segment scar. Or if she has conceived within 2 years, that 18 months period, then it is weak lower segment scar. Or if she has polyhydramnios, or she has twins, this pregnancy following previous section, and interval is between the pregnancy interval is time is less. Or if she every time when she comes here antenatal checkup, if she complains of pain in the lower segment, then think of weak lower segment scar, admitted 36 weeks, complete your steroid dose. If you can assess every day, correlate everything. If you can wait till 38 weeks, wait till 38 weeks, or immediately take a first section. Did you get that? If a lower segment scar, 38 weeks. If a classical scar, admitted 36 weeks. If the weak lower segment scar, admitted 36 weeks. Correlate everything, do everyday rounds, decide accordingly. If you can wait till 38 weeks so that your term and maturation of the lung is over. If you cannot wait, give a dose of steroid, take off a section. Hospitalization emergency. Whenever the labor starts, Any symptom suggestive of scar rupture such as pain lower abdomen, bleeding per vagina, tenderness over the scar, or any associated obstetric complications, immediately admit the patient, hospitalize, do needful. Previous classical cesarean section or hysterectomy. The choice is elective. Repeat section should be done when the patient reaches 38 weeks. Previous lower segment scar, mandatory hospital delivery, and individualization of the case has to be done. Overall assessment of the case has to be made with due consideration to indication, as we have already priorly discussed about the 5 points. Indication of the prior cesarean section, that is the recurrent, non-recurrent, integrity of the scar evaluated clinically with the sonography, that is the thickness of scar to be elicited, whether the thickness is less than, cutoff point for the thickness is 2.5 mm. If it is less than 2.5 mm or more than 2.5 mm, obstetric complications if in this pregnancy, if any associated, has to be noted and kept in mind. Number of previous cesarean sections has to be done, has to be noted. Estimated the weight of the baby. If the weight of the baby is 4 kgs in this pregnancy, and if the patient is around 38 weeks, why do you want to wait for one more week? Already the patient baby has reached 4 kgs. And our main concern is what? The baby grows 50 grams per day in the late trimesters, 50 to 60 grams. Every day the baby is growing huge, the scar might give away. So immediately plan according in those scenarios. What are the predictors of successful VBAC? What do you mean by VBAC? Vaginal birth after cesarean section. Prior non-recurring indications such as breech, fetal distress. Women have a prior vaginal delivery. That is, if the patient has first cesarean, second she has underwent vaginal delivery, then this time also she can go for a VBAC. Fetal birth estimation. Higher the fetal weight, lower will be the success. If the weight of this time, if the weight of the baby is less than 2.5, then there will be more chances of TOLAC. If it is more than 3.5, there will be less chances of TOLAC. Here, successful VBAC is not delivering the baby. It is delivering the baby along with a sound scar. That is, scar should not dehisce. If you have conducted 4 kgs delivery of like a VBAC for a previous cesarean section patient, and the scar has given away, then that is not called successful VBAC. Successful VBAC is called when there is a delivery, when there has an vaginal delivery after a cesarean section where the scar didn't give away, baby is good, mother is good. Only all these conditions are normal, are good, then it is called successful VBAC. So the more the weight of the baby, there will be lower the success of VBAC. Spontaneous onset of labor in the present pregnancy will have higher success of TOLAC other than inducing with prostaglandins. Cervical dilatation more than 4 centimeters will have higher the success. It means if the patient comes to you saying that I have started pain and I have a previous pregnancy, then after all the checkup, we do an pervaginal examination where we see cervical dilatation, cervical position, dilatation, effacement, station of the patient, and your pelvic assessment. So if the dilatation of the cervix is more than 4 centimeters when you do for the first time PV for a patient who has a previous section, then they say that success of VBAC will be more in those patients. Women with a previous LSCS due to breech presentation will have higher success. Women who are obese and elderly, then those people will have lower success in VBAC. These are just the predictors. These all the predictors have come only through studies. There is no dictum for anything. But whenever you are planning for a VBAC, think it should land up with a successful VBAC. It means vaginal delivery should occur. Sound scar should be there. Scar should not rupture. My baby should be fine. Mother should be fine. Risk factors for scar rupture. I have said earlier, more than 2 prior cesarean deliveries, there will be more chances of scar rupture. Interpregnancy interval less than 24 months. According to Williams, it is 18 months. There will be more chances of scar rupture in induced labor other than a spontaneous labor pains. Augmentation of labor, if it is done with oxytocin, there will be high dose of oxytocin. Usually we start with 5. If you have augmented with more than 20 milliunits per minute, there will be, it is a high dose of oxytocin for in augmentation, then she will have more scar rupture chances. Women having a single layer uterine closure in a prior pregnancy will have more scar rupture. Cesarean delivery compared to the double layer closure also. Vaginal birth after previous delivery. VBAC and trial of labor after cesarean is successful in 70 to 76% of cases. Maternal and perinatal mortality rates following VBAC, toll is trial of labor, are the same when compared to elective repeat cesarean births. In suspected maturity, it is better to wait for the pains to start or membranes to rupture, whichever occurs earlier, than to do a cesarean section. If the previous section was done for some non-recurrent indication and the uterine scar is sound, a vaginal delivery can be planned. Women need to be counseled by the team of an OB-GYN, anesthetist, and neonatologist. Where you can conduct a VBAC is when you have all these three people at 24/7 in the hospital available with a blood bank. Then you can ask any patient to undergo VBAC, where if something goes wrong, immediately she has to shift it to OT theater, emergency theater complex from your delivery room, so that she can have an cesarean delivery also if needed. Management of labor and delivery for a VBAC. Spontaneous onset of labor is desired. Induction of labor with the prostaglandins increases the risk of uterine scar rupture. An intravenous line is commenced where RL is started. Blood sample is sent for HB grouping and cross matching. Labor monitoring should be done, especially for the scar lesions. And CTG has to be continued because CTG is the first predictor for impending scar rupture. Careful serial clinical assessment is to be done due to cervicometric progress, that is your cervical dilatation, and assessment has to be done. Proper analgesia has to be given. Oxytocin augmentation of labor can be used, but for the low dose oxytocin has to be used. Augmentation of labor increases the risk of uterine scar rupture, and risk of cesarean section will be more in those patients. Continuous electronic fetal monitoring is desirable, so that whenever you have a non-reassuring pattern or any decelerations or any bradycardia, any beat to beat variability, immediately these are the warning signs for uterine rupture, so she has to be shifted to OT immediately. Prophylactic forceps or ventos can be used or kept to be ready, so that you can cut short the second stage. When you cut short the second stage, they say there will be decreased chance for scar rupture. Selective criteria for the cases of TOLAC or VBAC are 1 or 2 previous lower segment transverse scars. VBAC is only done for a lower segment prior transverse scar. It cannot be done for a classical scar. Remember that. Non-recurring indication of a prior cesarean section. Pelvis should be adequate for this fetus. Continuous labor monitoring is possible. Availability of resources should be there. That anesthetist, blood, and pediatrician, everyone. Informed consent of the woman has to be taken before allowing her for VBAC. She has to be clearly explained that it may not 100% chance, there is no 100% chance that she will have a vaginal delivery. She might be taken off a section also. All these things have to be explained immediately immediately to the patient before taking the consent. Previous classical or inverted T-shaped uterine incision are the contraindications. Previous 2 or more lower segment scar is contraindicated when the pelvis is contracted or suspected CPD. See, contracted pelvis is different, CPD is different. Contracted pelvis is short for the normal baby to come out, whereas CPD is cephalopelvic disproportion. Pelvis is normal, but the baby is big. So this baby cannot come out through the pelvis. That is called CPD. Whereas, see, think this is what is that, pelvis, and this is baby. This is a normal pelvis for anyone. This is a baby. This cannot come out through it because cephalopelvic disproportion. Because head should engage before coming into the pelvis, and delivery should occur. But when you see a big head which cannot engage into the pelvis, then this is called CPD. Here baby will be big, pelvis will be normal. This is called CPD. Contracted pelvis is, in spite of this pelvis which is normal, pelvis will be short, baby will be normal. In this scenario also baby cannot come out because this is small. So this baby cannot come out. This also has to be ruled out. This scenario is called contracted pelvis. CPD is normal pelvis with a big head. Presence of other complications in the pregnancy, eclampsia, malpresentation, previa, or any other medical conditions has to be noted, and usually they say it is a contraindication for VBAC. If the resources are limited, it means that if you cannot post her immediately for a section, then you might lose a mother and baby. Mother is due to your rupture, baby is due to any fetal asphyxia. So in those cases, you cannot go for a VBAC. History of, if the patient gives you a history of prior uterine rupture in the second pregnancy where she has been allowed for VBAC, then she is a contraindication for VBAC in the third time. She has to be immediately taken off a section. This is a prior section. Regular antenatal supervision, hospitalization will be done in a lower uterine segment, admission at 38 weeks, assessment of the case, formulation of method of delivery. If it is a classical or hysterotomy scar at 36 weeks only and elective section at 38 weeks. Benefits of VBAC: decreased maternal morbidity, that is a decreased time of stay in the hospital. Patient can be treated like a normal delivery patient after the VBAC. So she can be sent home immediately after second day or third day. Reduced length of the hospital day stay, decreased need for blood transfusions, decreased risk of abnormal placentation and the need of successive cesarean delivery in the next pregnancy. Risk of elective repeat section, increased maternal morbidity, length of the hospital stay, increased risk of hemorrhage, need for blood transfusions, risk of abnormal placentations in the subsequent pregnancies. Complications of unsuccessful VBAC, they are maternal. Uterine wound dehiscence can occur, rupture. The differences of dehiscence and rupture, did you understand? Dehiscence is only the two layers of the uterus has given away where the peritoneal coat is still adherent. Rupture is, it is completely ruptured. Increased risk of blood transfusions, increased risk of hysterectomies due to the uterine rupture, infections, increased risk of maternal morbidity. Coming to perinatal, low Apgar score, NICU admissions, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, neonatal death, and rarely stillbirth. Routine exploration of the uterus. Most prefer not to explore the uterine scar as a routine. It is done in a selective cases where there is a bleeding is continued. Other prefer to do as a routine. Two fingers have to be, when you want to see a scar after a delivery, two fingers has to be introduced into the vagina and internally detect any asymptomatic scar rupture, palpate and detect it. There is an increased risk after cesarean section. Before the third time cesarean delivery, the woman needs to be counseled and option should be taken, obtained for a sterilization operation, that is your tubectomies. This is previous cesarean section. What are the things you have to keep in mind? You have to know first the difference between uterine rupture and dehiscence. The first thing, what do you mean by VBAC? Your VBAC, your indications, contraindications. Indications is in whom you can allow for a VBAC, that is vaginal birth after cesarean section, or that also comes under your trial of labor. Your 10 marks question will be trial of labor, where you have to write about VBAC, and also your trial of labor you will be given in borderline CPDs if with induction or augmentation of prostaglandins. Both answers has to be written in the same question. Indications, contraindications, what are the successful predictors of VBAC, and what are the complications following the VBAC if it is unsuccessful, that are the maternal and fetal. These are the things you have to be known before talking about this topic. And when do you admit a patient, hospitalize the patient? If it is a lower uterine segment, 38 weeks. If it is a hysterotomy or a classical scar, 36 weeks. For a hysterotomy or classical scar, there is no VBAC, there is no vaginal delivery. Immediately post them at 38 weeks for section, repeat section C, the elective cesarean section. If it is the lower segment scar, admission at 38 weeks, assess the case, formulation the method of delivery. If you think that she cannot go for a VBAC, elective cesarean section has to be planned accordingly. If she fits into the vaginal delivery, that is a VBAC indications, You can ask her for a VBAC. If the progress is unsatisfactory or evidence of scar tenderness is present, post of a section. If everything is normal, prophylactic labor progressing smoothly, can allow for vaginal delivery. This is a schematic management of pregnancy with a free of cesarean scar. This is an important topic because people will be asking you both in a clinical, and you might also expect a question on this topic in your final exams also. That's it. Hello? Guys, are you listening? Did you understand anything about this topic?
Yes, ma'am.
Only one is. How many of you are there in the class? Okay, guys, take care. Bye. అయిపోయింది. Thank you.